A 30-year-old world record officially gone, a new American record that only lasted about 16 hours, an age group world record that might stand for another century, and a surprise world record that I don't think anybody saw coming. This opening weekend of professional track and field was far more entertaining and groundbreaking than anything that I think anyone was expecting, and it just might be the start of one of the greatest years in track and field. Records are meant to be broken. We've heard this mantra a million times. But whoever said this would have never guessed at how many records were set to fall in this opening weekend in 2026. Because over the course of about 72 hours, we saw some of the longest-standing world records in all of athletics fall by the wayside. And to kick things off, we have to start with Josh Hoey, the man who went from a promising American talent to a global middle-distance star. For real, I don't think there's any runner in the world right now with the higher projected ceiling than Josh Hoey. He just keeps breaking world record after world record. He recently broke the indoor 600 world record. He recently broke the American record in the indoor 1000. He won last year's world indoor champs in the 800. And just a few days ago, on January 24th, he broke the 29-year-old world record in the 800 meters, breaking Wilson Kipketter's historic indoor world record. Coming into this year's New Balance Indoor Grand Prix, only Kipketter had ever broken 143 for the indoor 8. This barrier represented somewhat of a mental block for any athlete competing, as many had gone under 145 and a few had managed to go under 144, but getting under 143 seemed almost impossible. That was until Josh Hoey ripped this 142.5 in Boston, taking yet another world record off the books. In many perspectives, this was one of the best world records that had been able to stand for the past few decades. But with his first 800 of 2026, Hoey dismantled the great Kipketter. But what was truly crazy about this year's Indoor Grand Prix in Boston was that exactly 28 minutes before this 800, we actually saw another world record fall, except this time, it was a world record of Kenenisa Bekele of Ethiopia, the athlete that many people consider as the greatest distance runner in history. In the men's 2,000 meters, Bekele ran a 449.99 back in 2007, an impressive performance by all measures, meaning that this record had now stood for the better part of 2 decades. This record was pretty solid, but many would agree that this wasn't quite as strong as Kipketter's world record, as the men's 2,000 isn't run that often indoors. However, with one of the strongest runs of his career so far, Hobbs Kessler from the United States took down Bekele's mark by more than a second, clocking a time of 448.79. Kessler's form here was simply insane. He looked so smooth for the opening 9 laps, and then for his final 200, he achieved a split of 26.31, one of the fastest closes in recent history. If you want to know how fast this is, get over to your local track, try to run 1/2 lap in 26.3, and then tell me that you can do that after running his pace for the opening 1,800 meters. Now, in addition to Hoey and Kessler taking down these previous records, we also saw a new age group world record from Sam Ruth in the men's mile as he took down the 16-year-old record with a time of 3:53.83, absolute insanity, and we saw Cole Hawker break the American record in the 2000 at 4:52.92, only to have this record fall less than 24 hours later by Kessler. But regardless, this still was a record that went down. Each of these record-breaking performances represents but a taste of what 2026 has to offer. And as Noah Lyles so eloquently put it, 2026 really is the year to go all out as much as you can from the get-go. You can't be scared to jump off the cliff. With no World Championships and no Olympics this season, many athletes are officially using this off year to really take their fitness to another level and simply run fast whenever they can. And speaking of fast, we also saw another record-breaking moment from this very weekend that was so fast that it also represents a new world record, but unfortunately, most people missed it. At the 2026 Stan Scott Invite from the Texas Tech Indoor Track in Lubbock, Texas, we had many of the fastest NCAA athletes in the country show up to compete in this indoor event. Now, historically, this indoor track is one of the fastest indoor tracks on the planet. There's been a few world records set over the past few years. Many collegiate records have also been set on this indoor oval. However, for the very, very last event of this year's Stan Scott Invite, we saw something truly captivating. In the men's 4x400 meters, we saw USC go up against Ohio State, Virginia Tech, and also Texas Tech. Now, for any event, the 4x4 is, unsurprisingly, one of the most competitive and exciting events of the day. You've got 4 athletes competing, you've got handoffs, you've got pushing and shoving. This 4x4 really was set to be entertaining. And to kick off this race, we saw USC and Ohio State officially separate themselves with the 2 fastest opening splits on the day, as their opening 400s were set at 46.5 and 46.72. Following this, we saw Garrett Colland of USC throw down a very impressive split at 45.25, giving the USC Trojans a slight lead over Ohio State, as Colland ran a time of 45.2 against Ohio State at 45.47. Now, for the third leg, we actually saw Ohio State take a pretty strong lead over USC, and going into this final leg, Ohio State had about a second lead on USC. And as you can see from this picture here, Ohio State was significantly ahead of USC. It seemed as though they had a strong lead going into this final leg, and it seemed as though USC would have to work very hard to even catch up to Ohio State. However, USC had a secret weapon at the very end of this relay. They had this man right here, William Jones, because what he was about to do would change the entire history of the indoor 4x4. After getting the baton, Jones made it his life's mission to not just track down Ohio State, but to bury them. Just look at how smooth and strong he's running on this opening lap, and then, when he makes his move, it is an absolutely devastating sprint by Ohio State. Over this final lap, Jones dropped Ohio State so smoothly and so quickly that you wouldn't even realize that he already put about 10 to 15 meters on Ohio State. And you might be wondering, how fast was his time here? Was it 44.6? Was it 44.5? No, it was a 44.13 split, which according to every database and every statistician that I can find, this is the fastest indoor 4x400 split of all time, tying William Jones with Randolph Ross, who has a slightly complicated history with the sprints over the past few years. And it was even faster than Christopher Bailey, who ran a 44.15 just a few years ago. And Chris Bailey famously won the World Indoor Champs in the 400. This 44.13 could be the stat that pushes William Jones into a seriously competitive position as the fastest indoor 400 runner in the world right now. This split has never been beaten by anyone else, and while he does not have an outright open 400 world lead right now, this 44.13 is undeniably impressive. And there is a high likelihood that Jones is set to do something very special in the open 400. It's not even February yet, ladies and gentlemen, and we are seeing some serious speed on the track. And this split from William Jones just might be the most underrated performance of 2026 so far. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time.